Hi everyone. In this video, I want to talk about the various components that go into pricing out a GLPI instance. Now, you might be thinking, GLPI, that's an open source platform. Why are there any costs associated with it? And we'll get to that in just a minute, but let me first talk about uh, how GLPI is open source. It is free, but the distinction between free and free. Now, if you've been around the open source community for a while, you may have heard this expression that free open source software refers to free as in speech, not as in beer. Um, and there are definitely some people who are more established in the open source community who have said that multiple times. But if you haven't been around open source or you've only recently started getting involved in open source, you might not have heard this expression. The meaning behind this expression is that what we mean by free open source software is that the code itself is offered to the community freely. Um, as in speech, as in it is a protected class of code, right? We offer it as a service, as a yeah, it's an offering to the community. The code itself, we're not trying to hoard it. We're not trying to uh, keep it for ourselves. We are offering it out to the community, and typically, this free is in freedom, free is in speech. Um, is coupled with open source software. So you will see free open source software kind of used as an acronym and as a package all to itself. So FOSS, FOSS, is often seen as a free and open source software, right? Now contrast that with just open source software. You can have open source software that isn't free, right? And some people might call this software something like source available. Just because you make the source public, available, doesn't necessarily make it free. Free indicates or describes what you are allowed to do with the software, right? So, one of the more recent um, changes is that there was the MongoDB license a while back. This was a couple of years back. I think there are more recent cases of this, but older than that, you remember when Sun was bought by Oracle, and Oracle changed a bunch of the licenses on some of Sun's products, and that's why you have community-driven forks of like MySQL. You have MariaDB, which was a fork of MySQL. You have Open Indiana, which was a fork of Solaris. At that point, it was Open Solaris that got forked into Open Indiana. I don't even know if Open Solaris is around anymore. Um, Similarly, OpenOffice got forked into LibreOffice. That was because while the original projects were still source available, the community felt that they were no longer free, right? So it's a philosophical distinction, um, not a financial distinction, right? So just because something is free and you have the freedom to use the software as you wish and in a variety of different situations, that doesn't necessarily mean that people can't charge for it, or that there aren't ways that people can charge for it, right? There are actually very large companies that were built on open source software, but still made quite a bit of money, right? Red Hat, SUSE, um, those are companies that became huge, basically selling services and support around open source products, right? Those two examples are Linux distributions, um, but it's not limited just to Linux distributions. There are plenty of open source projects where the code itself, the product itself, is open source and arguably free. Free is in freedom. But you also have options to be able to purchase support. And that's not to be confused with situations where there's either dual licensing or a community version and an enterprise version, right? What GLPI does is not the same as what GitLab, for instance, does. GitLab has a community edition and an enterprise edition, uh, or I think they've moved away from the enterprise edition name, but basically a paid edition, right? There's a community edition where you get quite a lot of uh, functionality out of the box. But if you pay for it, you get additional functionality. That's not what GLPI does. GLPI, it is the same product. The product itself is completely open source, completely free to use. Uh, it is not dual licensed so that you can either choose to do an open source, free uh, situation with it or a commercial version with it. No, the entire application is open source. It is completely licensed under the GNU General Public License Agreement, and the that makes it both open source, obviously, and free as in freedom. Because actually, going back to the history lesson, that's where that expression first came from. Was Richard Stallman with the GNU project. Free is in freedom, free is in speech, not as in beer. Right. I don't know if he was the first one to say it, but it's certainly very common around that community. Okay, so with all that being said, GLPI is free and open source software. So in theory, you should be able to run it without paying a dime. And in practice, that is absolutely true. You can go ahead, you can download a GLPI, you can download a release of GLPI, you can download a beta of GLPI, you can download the source code and run it however you want, right? It is completely open source, it is completely free. Again, free is in freedom. Um, and free is in price as well. Gratis, if you want to use that word. It is completely free to use. You can use it in whatever scenario you want. However, it does mean that you are basically on your own. You are uh, able to run it on your own hardware, on your own infrastructure, support it yourself, do the customizations yourself, um, do additional development. You can build plugins all on your own. Uh, and you can get some community. I hesitate to call it support. Um, Technically, it is, right? You could post on Reddit. There's a Reddit community. There are community forums that are run by TechLib, the developer of GLPI. Uh, and there are other GLPI users and potentially even partners who will answer questions for you, right? But it is essentially best effort, right? We'll try to help you. We want to answer your questions. We're not going to be stingy about it. We don't want to, um, gatekeep anything. But at the same time, there are other pathways to get, guaranteed support, uh, guaranteed hosting, that sort of thing. So in the rest of this video, I know we're already 8 minutes in, but in the rest of this video, I want to talk about the five aspects that you can pay for. And I would encourage you to pay for at least some of them um, to uh, build up the community and provide better support for your particular GLPI instances. So those five aspects are hosting, support, services, training, and community. We'll get to community last. And the reason I want to do it in this order is because I think it's easier to see the community aspect of it in the context of if we kind of build up the other four as if they're a stack. So with hosting, I want to make a distinction between the GLPI network cloud and the GLPI network um, basic and advanced and those sorts of things, basic, standard, and advanced, those tiers, right? The GLPI network cloud is the vendor hosted model, which is very familiar to all of us who use SaaS applications on a regular basis. Um, the GLPI network basic, standard, advanced, that's the on-premise version. Again, we'll save that toward the end because again, I think it's easier to see why all of these aspects are treated kind of individually. If we look at everything as a stack that works together in concert with everything else, right? So GLPI Network Cloud is basically the hosting model. You are paying for a managed hosting solution. Um, Kind of like if you bought WordPress hosting from, WP Engine or another WordPress host, right? They provide the infrastructure. They make sure that WordPress is up to date. In this case, they make sure that GLPI is up to date, and make sure that it's free from vulnerabilities. They manage the infrastructure the way you would expect, so you don't have to. But then anything inside of the application is completely up to you. And that's where the support aspect comes in, right? If you don't just want to support it on your own, which you are more than welcome to do, right? We're talking free is in freedom here. Free is in flexibility. If you want that additional uh, resource available to you, uh, TechLib and GLPI has an extensive network of partners, including myself, who can provide that level of support for your instance. So basically, GLPI Network Cloud provides from the application down. Partners provide from the application up. So the support for your configuration, the support for even your technicians who are working in the application, even your users, if you want that level of support. Um, if you're having a problem with the application, we we the partners can help uh, with that aspect of support, right? Obviously you're using GLPI to provide support to your users, as far as your technical support is concerned, but as far as the GLPI application and making sure that it does what you need it to do, it behaves the way you expect it to, that sort of thing. That's this one of the services that the partners provide, which gets us into services. Now, what's the distinction between support and services? For me, I make the distinction between basically who is logged into GLPI, making changes, doing things. So if uh, you are in GLPI making configuration changes or modifying tickets, adding new tickets, that sort of thing, and we are watching and helping you understand what's going on and make the changes that you need to change. From my perspective, that's support, right? We are supporting you. We are not doing the things. We are assisting, right? That's support. If we are logged in and doing whatever needs to be done, making the configuration changes, that sort of thing, that is services. Um, those are services that we provide, and we can certainly provide support for the services that we have provided, right? And that falls into support. So we would make the change, and then, day-to-day operation, you call in, have a question, then it's in the support realm. It's not in the services realm, because you're asking a question about how to use GLPI. And we can also provide training around both GLPI as a platform or the configuration changes that we have made uh, to your GLPI instance. And we have a few different training options that we provide, to both from the perspective of technician training, how to use GLPI, or administration change and configuration training, how to make GLPI work the way you want it to work, and then uh, training on your specific instance, customized training based on the configuration that we have added to GLPI, or even that you have added to GLPI. If you're not sure how to articulate those changes to your technicians or to the rest of your organization, we can certainly work on that and provide a customized training for your particular situation. So with that, we've kind of built up this stack. We have infrastructure, then we have support, which is basically the dividing line is the application. And if you are making the changes to GLPI, it's support. If we are making changes to GLPI, it's services. And then training is kind of this overarching um, cloud or bubble or additional layer, where we can educate you, your team, your organization on whatever aspect of GLPI you have questions about. Now, of course, I've mentioned that GLPI being open source, free open source, you don't have to run it in a particular hosted environment. So if you're handling that whole hosting piece, Why would you want to pay for GLPI? Well, the reason for that is the community. Not only does paying for GLPI, paying for again, it's the GLPI network, uh, basic, standard, advanced, three different tiers for three different scales of organizations. That gets you pretty much access to the community. It's buying a membership to this community of um, builders, developers, everybody who's working to make GLPI even better. You can see that in lots of the announcements around GLPI 11, which will be coming out later this year. Um, Significant improvements, and those have all been driven by this this GLPI network community. So it's a stronger community than just a general open source community, right? It's We're not talking just having a code repository on GitHub and a bunch of issues on GitHub that you can submit and that sort of thing. You certainly can, but this is a tighter knit, the community between TechLib, the developer and editor of GLPI, the entire partner network, and all of the customers working together to continue to improve GLPI. So basically, that's what you are replacing the GLPI network cloud with when you sign up for a GLPI network subscription. You are continuing to support the ongoing development of GLPI. You are continuing to support the community of GLPI, um, and you're basically making it possible for all of us to provide all of these other services on top of that strong foundation. Uh, so hopefully that clarified some of the aspects of what you can pay for in the world of GLPI and why it actually makes complete sense to pay for a lot of these different things in GLPI, because you do get that added community, you do get that, I want to say, safety net, but realistically, it's you have someone to assist, you have that level of support, you have that level of services, you have training. Um, it's not just the product. Sure, you can run the product by itself, and it's a fantastic product. I'm running it uh, for our own support system, um, because it's an incredible platform. It works just as well for us as it does for a large organization, uh, and the possibilities are endless. So I strongly recommend you try out GLPI if you haven't already, and look at how you're going to augment the product with the services and the community available to you. We're certainly willing to talk to you about that. You can find links in the description below to contact me. You can go to our website, fill out a contact form with your specific questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. We'd love to help you run GLPI for your organization, or at least see what the possibilities are for either replacing what you currently have with GLPI, or maybe getting into territory that you haven't been able to get into with whatever your current solution is. So with that, I'm going to end the video. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.